you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're just waiting for one more member.
Oh, we got a chat message. Steve just let me know he will be 10 minutes late, but I think we're okay to start.
I think a quorum. Yeah.
So are we good?
Yeah.
Good to go? Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Hello.
Hello.
Nanaimo Design Advisory Panel meeting for September 10th, 2020. Another virtual experience. So we have, well, coming up, we have a couple presentations, but first of all, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We do have quorum. Steve will be joining us in about 10 minutes, but we have quorum at the moment, so I think we're okay to start. We have an agenda. I think everybody's seen it, so I'd like to move the adoption of the agenda. If anybody has any comments, let me know. Otherwise, all in favor? Okay. We have minutes. Actually, that was a question because there were no minutes attached.
They're not quite finished.
They're not quite finished. Okay, so we don't have minutes to adopt, so we don't have to worry about that. So we can move into presentations, and I think the first one is for 361 Albert Street, and Lisa Brinkman will be introducing that for us.
Hello everyone. So this is a development permit application for a 23-unit residential building with underground parking at 361 Albert Street. This site is just near our building here, half a block away. The property is currently vacant and is zoned DT9, Old City Central. The property falls within Development Permit 8 and Development Permit 9. Thus, the General Development Permit Area Guidelines apply and the Old City Multiple Family Residential Design Guidelines apply to the proposed development. One variance is proposed for building height. The maximum allowable height is 11.2 meters and a height of 14 meters is proposed. And so Douglas Johnson, if you'd like to go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here, hopefully.
You click on share screen.
We're going to share our screen.
I have the presentations. So I'm doing some
I'm assuming no luck yet, is that correct?
No.
That's correct. Oh, there we go. Yay!
Success!
Thanks. Anyway, this is on 361 Albert Street, which is basically downtown. Immediately across the street is the Discovery Community College. Adjacent to us is a parking lot, and there's a little two-story commercial building, which is immediately to the south of us. We're proposing basically the presentation of the street would be a 5-story building, basically a 4-story building over one level of underground parking, 4 stories of that. We are using the DQ9 zoning. Proposing 23 residential units. They're all smaller in the kind of 500 square foot range. And we have a 0.85 FSR with a 0.25 for 1.1 FSR, approximately 1,200 square meter building. Again, we have Albert Street here. We have our parking lot, which is up here. The commercial building to the south, and our building is in this area here. There's quite a significant grade change across the building, so we've got about 14 meters in grade difference from this corner back up to here. We have retaining walls, which are going to be along the south and along the east. We have a ramp up from Albert Street into our underground parkade, and we're doing a grade transition across the building so that it's basically level access on our second floor. Our parkade level. We have our ramp coming up into our underground. We have a security gate. On one side, we have our lobby area and in the entrance to the building with the elevator. And on the other side, we've got just a small little work unit, which is basically on the street level. And behind, we have parking now for 21 stalls. We're required to have, I believe, 12 stalls for the building. We have our bike storage area and also our garbage recycling area on this level. On level 2, we have level access out onto the landscape plaza area, which is over top of our underground parkade. We have double-loaded corridor with 6 units. Units basically split each side, east-west. Levels 3 and level 4 are similar. Again, 6 units per floor, double-loaded corridor with units split on both sides. And our balconies are actually quite large on these units. Our top floor, we've recessed in the buildings on the corners. And we have 4 units on this level instead of our 6, and they're a bit bigger, and we have 1 2-bedroom unit, which is facing out onto the back. We have a flat roof with a 2% slope going from the west to the east, with large overhangs on the Albert Street side. Section 1 is a north-south section, so our grades are going up substantially to the south and then dropping off to the north. The floors are typically 9 feet clear, and on the upper floor we've got 10 feet. Albert Street. And then basically we've got the underground parkade, which is extending out the back, and then we have the level access coming on level 2. The elevation basically just showing the context in terms of the streetscape with the commercial building, which is to the south of us, the parking lot, which is to the north. This is where our height variance comes in. Is on our average grade, we have 14 meters in building height. In the GT9, it's 11 meters required. So basically, the reason we need it is that in order to be able to meet the density of the zoning, we need to be able to have some additional height. Our rendering of our building, the parking lot we've got to the north. There's that commercial building on the side. So we're doing these kind of privacy screens, which are running up along the sides of our balconies. We have a very large, dramatic roof overhang on the upper floor. We're doing a sort of a structural glass on the balcony on the Albert Street facade. Our windows are using kind of a silver gray color for the windows. Most of our palette is black, and we have some accent, sort of a gray brown color to break up our walls on the 0 lot line on the sides. Our main entranceway is accented by a structural steel element, which is supporting a glass canopy. And we're using a red punchy color to, again, to just identify the main entranceway. In the rear of the building is using similar elements with these L-shaped privacy screens coming up on the edges of the balconies. And then we have these large balconies out on the back, and the windows are large and quite expansive, so we have a lot of glazing on this building. Materials, we've kept it fairly tight, so we have hardy siding. We've got some hardy panel on our privacy screen, and we have basically our steel element at the front. We have aluminum canopy, glass on our balconies. We're using the vinyl windows. And then our roof, we're looking at doing a lighter colored reflective roof. It's going to flat roof material. And that's basically an overview of the project.
Okay, did you want to speak at all to the landscaping in the rear?
Our landscape architect should be online, I hope.
Yes, hello.
There we are.
My name is Anita, PMG Landscape Architect. I would like to ask Darcy if you can upload our color landscape plan on the screen.
Douglas.
I sent a color plan. Just wait a minute.
Okay, is it up now?
Not yet. It freezes, I think. The screen freezes.
Sorry, it has this button saying resume share, but it's not doing anything exciting.
You can stop it and you can try it.
Yeah, good try.
Douglas, I can try stopping your sharing from our side, and you can try sharing again.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead and try to share again.
Okay.
Thank you. So good afternoon again, everybody. Streetscape for this project have been designed to provide two street trees in grass boulevards. And we are providing a landscape buffer, which includes shrubs, grasses, perennials, and two small trees in front of the work living unit, A1, and in front of the lobby. We are providing decorated pavers, like plank, modern look pavers, for that small plaza in front of the lobby. There we will provide a bench, one bench for visitors and one bike rack for two bikes. We're providing a big, large amenity area in the back, which is separated from private patios by a landscape strip with boxwood hedge, some perennials and grasses, which gives privacy for that patio areas for residents who will use the patio area. Amenity space have been designed to provide a diverse programming. We have outdoor kitchen dining, where we have two big picnic tables. We have a trellis with 2 barbecue under it, and garden plots for residents for gardening with all equipment that's required, with garden sheds, floating tables. There is a bench as well. So everything is designed for residents to do gardening, planting veggies, herbs, and different other plants. There is a big play area for younger ones that with play equipment on resilient play surface. This play equipment provides different play opportunities like sliding, climbing, different motor skills, imaginative, socializing. We're providing 2 benches for caregivers and just for interaction for residents. There is open lawn area, which can use for passive or active activities. There, residents, they can play games or just have a picnic or just sit and read on a lawn. We're providing free shade trees, cherry trees in the middle of amenity space. And also we're providing conifer trees at the back, at north, where the very high retaining wall will be installed. So we can screen partially that retaining wall with landscape. As well, we are providing the cedar trees at north property line. We will soften that environment of retaining wall which is surrounding amenity space. As well, we're providing polar lights with which we can lead the amenity space later in the evening, nighttime. And that's an overview for proposed landscape for this project.
Okay, thank you. Douglas, did you have anything else to add?
No, I don't think so. I was just kind of opening up for questions. That's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. I will start by asking do any panel members have any questions for staff? Oh, unfortunately, I can't see everybody, so. Yeah, maybe Douglas, could you stop there? Thank you. Yep. Okay, so did anyone have any questions of staff? Kevin saying no. Okay, I think Kate, yeah.
Just wondered, so what the building requirement, the stormwater management on site, what the requirements were. Just given it's a very small site, I don't see anything like green roof being proposed, so wondering if we could hear a little bit about that.
I don't have that information. I wonder if Douglas could speak to that. I mean, it was submitted with the application and staff will be reviewing it carefully to ensure compliance with the engineering standards, but I don't have that, here.
Okay.
But perhaps Mr. Johnson could speak to that.
At this point, I don't think we really have too much more on that issue.
Okay.
Okay, so I will open it up to panel members for questions to the applicant. I'll start, actually, Kate, since you're there and I think you're unmuted, I think I'll start with you.
Sure. Okay. So the landscape. First, I appreciate that you have considered different uses for the amenity space and providing space for children and, you know, communal eating and gardening, all those kinds of things. So I think that's really great. I'm really concerned about those retaining walls and the size of them, and I don't know if we're getting a really good picture of what that's going to look like. And is it my understanding that the whole back amenity landscape is built on structure? Is that right? Like,
Yes.
okay. So you're
On top of the parquet. Yeah.
yeah. So you're limited for soil
Yes.
volume. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Did you look at possibly sort of like terracing that back wall to sort of make
There is one step down, which is not, it's probably we should think about more steps down in the future, so we are softening that wall at the back. But planting these conifer trees, that will use, visually will reduce, you know, the wall from pedestrian point of view.
Yes, I agree. I think it would be helpful as the project moves forward that this designation from this back wall and the experience of those who are the residents of that space.
Yeah. Ones with trellis, like metal trellis with wires, that is an option as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but because all is on slab structures, so we're a little bit limited on that, and yeah, we should confirm that with structural engineers how we can soften it.
Yeah, I think that would be worthwhile for the project. Yeah. Also, since you don't have a lot of space, and then I'm just going to move back to the front of the project. Since there's not a lot of space there, I think it would be great if you, I see that you have plantings and then you have a grass boulevard and the 2 street trees. And I would love to see that planting just come right out across the property line into the boulevard. So maybe see if the city is open to that. Just given the minimal space you have for planting, might as well just put more plants in there. That'd be great. I think it would help the street relationships too. Yeah. How else did I was actually, I guess this is a question to architects, but I'm interested in what the view is of that roof from the surrounding properties, and you said it might be a lighter reflective material, is that right? So I hope that that is chosen with consideration to the fact that you have a lot of properties around you looking down on you, but that your roof is more important than the average roof.
Yes, that is correct. You are. Yes, we are taking care with what we're doing up there and how we're placing everything and materials.
Yeah, like in particular, I know green roofs are expensive and they're not always the way you want to go, but with this project, given the steep slope of Albert Street and the views onto it, it's not a bad project for a green roof as far as the overall neighborhood experience of that building. Anyway, I'm not making a recommendation. I'm just making a comment on that. I think I appreciate that the amenity space is trying to be inclusive of different uses, and I think that's great, and I know you're limited because you're building on structure. I'll just leave it at that for now, and I may later revert with a recommendation. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Kate. Who can I see? Kevin.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the presentation. Looks like it's going to be a very nice project. Have you looked at the staff comments and addressed any of them? guess that's for both of them.
That's a question for me?
Yes, I guess it's for both of you.
Okay. The comments that I've got back so far are actually being very limited.
Okay, okay. I will hope that you will look at the concerns and deal with them through staff, because I have most of those, I have concerns with some of those as well, especially the looking at ways to enhance the side elevations with either through color or materials to provide a little more articulation.
Yeah, those kind of walls are always tricky.
Yeah, zero lot line, but you know what's going to happen on the adjoining properties and how long that might happen. So you could look at ways just to add a little bit more impact, either through contrast or through the materials that are used. I think there might be a way to make that a little bit more pleasing to the eye. You're asking for quite a sizable variance. Basically almost a complete story in height. Most of these units are pretty small. And is there a need to have 9-foot ceilings on the residential floors? Could you reduce those down to 8 feet?
It's unusual these days. I actually haven't done one with at 8 feet for a long time.
Yeah, it might help you out a bit, because when you're asking for that much of a variance, you know, many neighbors will be notified over something like that. And
even the building as it is right now, we're not above. It's basically all above just about 14-meter grade change for us.
Yeah, the commercial unit beside you is quite dwarfed by the size of your project. But I'm just throwing that out there because I know you could run into some obstacles there when this goes past council, and you know, basically you're asking for almost a complete floor in height for that variance. So I just throwing that out there just because that is an option to obviously reduce it by 4 feet. Down to maybe a 5-foot, just over a 5-foot variance. So just that out there, not as a recommendation, but it's just for food for thought more than anything. Other than that, I'm happy with the form and character. Not a lot you can do. You're dealing with zero lot lines on both sides like that. I like the landscape concept too. I think the effort that you put in back there is very nice. I do have the same concerns that were brought up by Kate. I'm not sure how those evergreen trees are going to grow over top of a concrete structure, and how much fill will be necessary to put in there to have those trees grow, and even the other trees unless they're put into planters. Do you know how much fill would have to be put on that roof to be able to successfully have those evergreen trees grow?
It's usually we are looking minimum like 3 feet depth, but we should work with structural engineers if we can load more, so we can plant bigger trees, so we'll have more landscape screening. But the other option is that trellis to be installed with evergreen white. They grow up faster, and they have a very good screen on the walls usually.
Okay. What about the other trees?
So for the others, we usually looking with 2.5 feet high depth planters.
Okay.
But yeah, we should confirm all this with structural engineer and how deep planters they can provide.
Yeah, and I had the same comment with Kate is you know, to terrace that and create a higher ceiling at the back portion of the garage to build that area up would provide a much softer wall, and maybe that's something consider just to help. And anything, growing vines or whatever on the ivy or whatever on the wall would help too. So other than that, I like what we've done. Again, all these units are basically one bedroom and are very small. And the need for a play area, even though I like it, have you given a thought as to why or whether or not you really need that play area?
So usually we are trying to provide different age group with some activities. So we really don't know, we can predict how many families and how many kids.
Yeah, well, how many families are going to live in a one-bedroom unit when there's only one two-bedroom unit, but that's their one bedroom. So to me, it's
good comment. Thank you for that. That's very good comment. Thank you. Because that play area is really big. So we will take that comment under.
Yeah, I'm not going to make it as a recommendation. I just want to point that out because
it's very good. Thank you. That comment is very good and very thoughtful. So always that area we can replace with some other activities or just or even open lawn area so people can play ball games or different other games. So that can be replaced with different.
It might not be for a bocce.
Yes.
But anything.
That was, yes. That's one of my concerns.
It's very private, that spot.
Yes.
And I'm glad that the effort that you made in what you've done so far, just so you can.
Yeah, we can reduce the play area and make bigger open lawn area. So
There's a lot. That. Also, as much as I agree with Kate's comment about green roof, I have seen it done where this is probably for Douglas, where people, during construction they put a green color roof on, so the torch on is a green color. That's out there before, and I've seen it done before, and it's very successful. I know there's solar gain issues when you use a darker color, but I have seen that done before, and it looks pretty neat. So, Doug, I'm not sure if you want to comment on that, Doug. It's not really a recommendation, but unless somebody else wants to endorse it as well. But other than that, I like your presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Tyler?
Yeah, thanks so much for the presentation. Pretty much any thought that I had has already been said. I did, Kevin, I think you covered it, but I did think it was kind of odd that there was so much play space, but the units are completely impractical for living with children. And I say that with a 3-year-old and a 18-month-old, and I think we would go crazy if we lived in a one-bedroom place. So, but yeah, I just think that maybe that needs to be revisited. Usually we have the opposite problem. I think there's not enough play space in some of these things. So I really do appreciate that consideration, and I think it's worth just exploring a little further.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tyler. Tony?
Thank you. I got a number of little comments and observations and so forth, in no particular order. I guess first of all, I'd have to say that from a form and character point of view, I really like the look of this building. It's a very nice, clean, contemporary look, sophisticated colors, nice detailing, materials, etc. That being said, obviously the north elevation seems to be a concern to everybody for planning, some of the panel members here, and I guess anything you could do to, slightly break that up a little bit, whether it's with a recess or a different color or something like that, I think would be helpful. I don't find it sort of a deal breaker, though, but I think it could stand a little bit of attention. I just comment to Kevin that 8-foot ceilings are just not done anymore. So recognizing the height issue and variance and potential public outcry, I think that's kind of a ship that sailed. But if there's anything else you could do, I don't know. On the rear retaining wall, it seems to me that I heard that there was a considerable parking surplus that was being provided here. And if I heard correctly, I don't know why you wouldn't pull that parking back from where the retaining wall is proposed and use that opportunity to do a really stepped retaining wall with planters and stuff growing up it and, you know, anything more. And probably the cost of doing that would, you know, be recouped by building less parking. I don't know, just an observation there. And related to that, what was I going to say here? I forgot what the other point was related to that. However, one thing that I really was not concerned about, but in terms of the Albert Street exposure, because that's angled, an angled property line, an angled street, I just wonder whether you're given any consideration to stepping the building in plan, like a little bit of a sawtooth to recognize the fact that it's, you know, it's not perpendicular parallel to the street, but perhaps stepping it or sawtoothing it to some degree might lend itself a little to a little better streetscape. That being said, I really like that entrance accent color detail that you have there. And overall, I think it's an excellent project, but I think it could stand a little more thought in a few of these areas that we've been raising. I just remember the last point that I was going to make, and it relates to the comment on the working with the landscape and structural engineering and historical capacity on that garage. And it seems to me that the largest trees are shown down the middle of it, which is an aisle, and likely structural engineers prefer larger trees over a column or at least a slab pad or something like that. So obviously you're going to run into that as you develop that further. So I think that's about all I have to say at the moment. If you want to comment or carry on to somebody else, up to you, John.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Steve, I know you joined us late, so you probably didn't see the presentation, but I suspect you looked at your package and you might have some questions or comments.
Hi, thanks for the project. Yeah, sorry I was late, everyone. I love the project. I know the property well, and I was trying to figure out how to purchase it, actually, way back when. So it's a challenging site, and with the elevations, to Kevin's comment earlier in regards to the variance and the height, I think, yeah, it is 3 meters over, but the property, the way that it's laid, is not conducive to anything but having a little bit of a variance there. So apart from everything else that's been already echoed, I like the project very much. It'll be very, very nice for the downtown. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. And I'll chime in just to say that once again, all my colleagues on the panel have answered or asked all my questions, and they've been dealt with and addressed. So, but same comments. Do like the project. It's a tough site. I will triple echo the whole discussion around anything that can be done to modify the landscaping in the rear and step that retaining wall, or, you know, I like Tony's suggestion. I was going to raise it about potentially losing a few stalls and stepping the retaining, you know, further into the site, but it will help. It will definitely help the project. So that being said, I have written down a few comments. I'm trying to be better at writing down these comments, so correct me if I'm wrong, but Kate, I've got for you I don't know if this was a recommendation or not, but you said consider the planting palette along the front planting areas to extend into the boulevard, you know, in consultation with staff. Okay.
Yeah. I guess it's a half recommendation, half comment, because it depends on the staff.
Yeah. Do you want it to be a recommendation or just leave it as a comment?
Maybe as a comment.
Okay. Kevin, I've got a couple for you, and I was going to raise the same one. So consider the incorporation of staff comments, particularly with respect to the side elevations, and consider the roof material / color selection with regard to the significant overlook by neighbors. Does that capture it?
Yeah, and also, I'm not sure, like the terracing the rear yard, I'm not sure if that was one of Kate's as well, whether or not that should be a recommendation or just...
yeah, I've got it under sort of Tony / me, so...
Okay.
So the only other recommendation I have is consider reducing the parkade length and number of stalls to allow for the step retaining wall at the rear of the property. So that would be 3 recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay. Could I ask for someone to put that motion on the floor?
I can do that. But first, I just want to say that I think we should, with respect to the variance, I don't think we should comment on that in our motion unless somebody agrees or wants to have it supported. I think we should, with this amount of variance, I think we should probably just not comment on it. Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. We've had other steep slope sites that have quite significant height variances, you know, sort of driven by the steep slope condition. So I think I agree with you that I think it's ultimately it's going to be a council decision. So
yeah,
Tony.
So if I
not to muddy the waters on this issue, but it may be a big one. I don't know. Would council be looking to this panel to comment on that? Because obviously, you know, we are providing advice to council, and if this is a significant enough issue, then any comment one way or another might be of help to them. I don't know, but I don't know council as well as others do. And it seems to me that on a site this dramatically sloping, I couldn't imagine doing anything on it without some kind of variance. So I don't have a problem with the variance in principle, but I just wonder, I just throw that out for consideration. So.
Okay, Tyler?
Yes, thanks. And I think that's a good comment and it's an interesting discussion because ultimately the variance is council's prerogative, but I would question how the design would be valid if the variance couldn't be supported, right? It would basically need a complete reworking. So I don't know how you can sort of approve the design in principle and let's say we don't support, or no comment on the level of variance. I would sort of read that as, yeah, you support the variance because you supported the design.
Right. And Lisa, did you?
I think it is useful for the design panel to comment on the height variance, and for staff as well. You're all professionals, so we do value your opinion on that.
Okay, so I think based on the comments and the discussion, I think we should have a motion on the floor that does include a consideration, pro or con for the height variance, and then we can discuss it.
Okay, well then I'll make a motion then that we accept the application as presented with those 3 recommendations and support for the variance.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Steve? Yep. Okay.
I think Kate has something to say.
And Kate?
I have a question.
Yep.
This is a question to staff. How is the green roof, not a painted green roof, but an actual green roof with plants? What am I trying to ask? Is there any room for us to make a recommendation towards that, or not? Or
yeah, Yeah, you can absolutely. You can soften it by saying consider a green roof, because yes, it's an expense and all of that. So I think absolutely you can include that in your motion if you wish.
But won't that have be increased when you add a green roof? The height of the building? Don't you have to beef up the roof more?
It's only to the edge of the railings, I think.
There's a railing.
Yeah, so
Not the
there's
trees or plants.
not the trees.
Yeah.
So it's just,
I'm just thinking,
go ahead.
You would need access then, I guess, right?
Access and the railing for safety issues.
Mm-hmm.
The actual green roof, it's not that, we don't need much depth, but that railing for safety, for maintenance people who will go up and will,
There's also a potential complication. I don't know if the rules have changed or not, because I'm not an insurance person, but it's very difficult to get homeowner warranty on a multi-unit building if you have a green roof.
Right.
So,
Yeah, right. I was thinking of some buildings, but they weren't multifamily that in my mind, so I forgot about that one. Okay. Just asking. No
okay, that's good because
That's wood frame construction.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, but these are good questions and comments as part of our discussion on the motion. Are there any other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, as I scan my screen, I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? And none opposed. So thank you very much.
thank you.
2 thumbs up. Okay, my other screen has gone dead, sorry. So our next presentation, sorry, I gotta scan through all this stuff.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next presentation is for development permit application at 140/125 10th Street.
Thanks. So this is a development permit application for an industrial development with 6,929 meters squared of mini storage, a standalone office building, and 963 meters squared of warehouse units at 140 10th Street. The subject property is a hooked parcel with a proposed development located on the south side of 10th Street. The property is zoned I2 light industrial and is designated light industrial in the official community plan. It falls within the Chase River neighborhood plan and development permit area 9. The general development permit area design guidelines apply to the proposed development. One variance is proposed to reduce the minimum required landscape buffer width along the western property line from 1.8 meters to 0 meters. I think we have Norman and somebody else from, sorry, I can't see there, Mount Benson Enterprises and the Herald Engineering team to present today.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
No.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
I think the Herald team is going to, are you guys going to take the screen, is that correct?
We try.
There they go, yep. You're on.
Okay, so our site is a really large site that's divided up by 10th Avenue. And the part that we're developing is kind of in the northwest, I guess. And we're breaking that portion of the site up into 2 zones, one for secured mini storage with an office space, and the other one is for warehouse type units. Okay. We've got 2 accesses, one for the mini storage and another one for the warehouse units. So the mini storage buildings, we've got 3 one-story sort of standard mini storage type buildings, all accessed at grade. And then we've got another big 2-story mini storage building. Our parking is mainly just like close to the units. We do have some additional parking up at the top there with our garbage enclosure and parking for the office space. But there are power lines that go through the site, which created a bit of an opportunity to create a nice green space along 10th, that portion of the site. And then when you get to the warehouse units, they have a bit of a street presence. We also have an aquatic setback on the, I guess, it's on the north there, right? It's south, okay, on the south side, sorry. So we're using that as a bit of for our rain garden, or our storm water is all being directed down towards the aquatic setback and then into a rain garden. So we do have, like, for our storage buildings, they're all steel pre-ridge type buildings with metal cladding, and then the office building and warehouse units are wood frames with hardy cladding.
Hi, Harrison here, landscape architect. I'll just run through this is a general site arrangement. There's some detail already, so I'll show you after. The road north is pointing to the side of the sheet, to the right side. I've oriented it so that 10th Street comes down on the right side of the sheet and crosses a railway track, and then we're at our subject property. It makes that bend, and then there's another railway track along the south property line there. In addition to that, the hatched area is that area that's covered by the heavy transmission line. So we have some limits as to what we can do there from a landscape perspective. In the existing situation, on the right of the drawing, you can see I've labeled some trees to remain there. There's a number of them along there. Unfortunately, they were just planted randomly without any idea for frontage. So the ones that exist on the other side of that transmission line in front of the proposed frontage warehouse building, they're all in the parking lot, so we can't really retain those. And in any event, there's a number of cedars there, and they've all been pruned into little pom-poms, so I'm not really advocating keeping them. Along the south property line is the area that has been allocated for stormwater management, and I will defer to the civil people who is here from Newcastle, and he can answer your questions of these anyway. Just for context, at the back of the site in the plan north, which is actually west, we have the railway corridor, and there's an existing copse of trees that extends within the right-of-way for the railway, pretty much all the way across to where that's the end of the proposed two-story storage is. So we're not really concerned about views from any development whatsoever. Actually, on the other side, it's a huge hydro corridor just beyond the railway track there. So we're just suggesting rough grass for that area. That said, we have two frontages which are extensively landscaped, and that's the 10th frontage and around the corner on 10th to approach that second mill setting. So if I can look at the other drawing, I'll show you some detail. So what I've done is I've taken the area on the left and blown out the area in front of the proposed warehouse. It's a very conventional parking arrangement there with the 3-meter fingers, I think, something like that. The 3-meter fingers separating gangs of, I think, 3 parking stalls. Each one has The trees are cut this right off the bat here, but yeah, okay, those are Pyrus Callariana, which is ornamental. I'm not very good with farm names. It's ornamental parrot, although there are no parrots on it. They have a very small berry. Nice, compact, well-behaved tree. Nice spring flowering, so forth. On the end of the building, because of the form of the drive aisle, I just gone with that and highlighted the end wall for that. We have a nice planting there with featuring heritage birches, which are that variety out now that don't get killed by bronze bridge borer. And there's sort of an area that looks like a billiard green, and it has 9 trees in it. And that would be a box, a triangular box or arrangement, geometrically arrangement of trees featuring pines and an understory of blue junipers. Now, the other detail view is for the office entrance, and I'll draw your attention just to a few things. One, because we have the overhead, I've selected for the right side of the drive aisle going into that back area of the site, Saskatoon, which are part of the list of PCMI gross produced that are acceptable for under that category of power line. They have a maximum height of 20 feet or so, and you don't see it all that high here. Ornamental planting and a small stormwater planting to the left of the building, and a small patio for picnic table. And then I have a curvilinear line that runs sort of from the corner of that building and then eventually hits the curve for the paving there. And that's a combination of shrub roads, and then that grades into California lilac. And the intent there is to provide a nice bold graphic color and screen the pavement from the street. So they'll provide a nice curved line. Curved lines are sort of part of the feature here. The site grading is, I haven't done a site grading plan for this one. It's a civil architectural role on this one, but the grades are not really very serious on that site. And other than perhaps between the two building sites and the parking lot between the mini storage and the front, there might be a low wall there. It's pretty separated a bit there, but not much. So that's about it. This is not an urban project. This is a industrial project, and I think this one will read well on the street from a landscape perspective. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, are you guys done? Do you have anything else to conclude?
I could, Drew from Newcastle Engineering, can chime in just really briefly on the stormwater management. Like Derek said, there's the aquatic setback at the south of the site, to the left of that drawing. The site naturally grades from the north all to the south, so we will be able to kind of collect and gather all of the site water from these various impervious areas and direct it into a long linear rain garden we have along the entire length of the south property, or sorry, the aquatic setback on the south side of the property. That'll give us both our stormwater retention and detention requirements to meet the municipal stormwater requirements, and also allow that water to re-enter the ground and feed the natural landscaping in that aquatic zone. So we don't, given the area that we have to work with, we don't anticipate any issues with being able to meet the stormwater requirements with non-engineered, so landscape solutions for stormwater management. That's the key point on. So I'll just chime in a little bit on the walls. There would be two walls, like Pat said. One is between the proposed warehouse building and the storage units. It's a small wall, kind of in the 1 to 1.5 meter range. Shows there between buildings 4 and 5. They're also, given that these are self-storage units, we do have to have a fairly level site. So there will need to be another retaining wall kind of along the east, or say the west property line up by the EN Railway. Again, though, that wall would be in the 1 to 2 meter range, just to make up a little bit of grade difference, and it would be dropping down from the railway into the site. But again, yeah, fairly minor walls and the, overall.
Okay, thank you. I will ask, actually, can you guys stop sharing your screen so I can actually see everybody? Perfect. Okay, so I will ask panel members if there are any questions of staff. Kate?
I had a question about the aquatic setback for staff.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
So am I reading, sorry, I couldn't see I don't have them printed out, but was it 15-meter setback, and how is that established?
Yeah, it's a 15-meter setback from the top of bank.
Okay, so what did you need to get a report then to confirm that setback was okay? Because my understanding is all water courses have a 30-meter setback. Am I wrong?
Yeah, so they was established by, I believe Steve Kopp did the report, and there's varying levels of setback. I'm not a biologist, so I won't
just asking.
But there's a difference between the stream protection and enhancement area, which is 10 to 12, can be up to 10 to 15 meters.
It varies.
And then there's the RAR, which can be in excess of that. So, but that was done by the project biologist. He established that line.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know, is that line was established. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Kate. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll open it up to questions, comments to the applicant. I'll go to my bottom corner, and I've got Steve.
Did you say me, Charles?
Yes, I did. Sorry.
I'm actually pretty quiet on this one. The area is right for this type of project. I personally like the landscaping, but I'll leave it to Kate to probably chime in a little bit more. And we actually are at a shortage of this type of building and storage, and as Nanaimo grows, that requirement is definitely going to be needed in the future. So, well done. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Kevin?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, guys. Right off the bat, it is what it is. I think you've done a pretty good job with how everything has been cited. The warehouse buildings look, nicer than what warehouse buildings should be. But I would say, I know a lot of my concerns are staff comment related, just like the previous project, and I would say that hopefully I would recommend that you address the staff comments, and also especially ones that talk about reduced paving, the wayfinding program, adding an amenity space by the office, and looking at ways to articulate some of the storage buildings. I really don't have, my only concern is really the slope of the site. And I'll talk about that in a second, but on the, by the warehouse, there's that half circular driveway on the north side of the building. Is that necessary? Is it one way?
It would say it's totally necessary, but it makes it so you've got full circulation around those warehouse units. So I think it's advantageous.
Yeah, it just if you're looking at ways to potentially reduce paving, whether or not that's 100% necessary. I guess that'll depend on the use of the building and what type of vehicles are going to be in those buildings, right? But just curious as to whether or not it was absolutely necessary. My only other concern is really the slope of the site. I'm looking at your site plan, or at least task plan, and it shows for building 2, there's a finished floor elevation of 22.9 meters, and the proposed office is 25.5 meters. So that's roughly an 8.5-foot rise from that building 2 to that office. And you pretty much have to start the driveway slope pretty much right after the parking there, right in between building 1 and building 2. And those parking spaces for the office are going to be fairly steeply side sloped if you're going to make up 8.5 feet all the way up there. So just wondered if you had any comment on that. I know Pat said that you guys haven't addressed it yet, but it's something that you probably need to work out fairly quick, because it could change aspects of how the parking is and other things too. So I'd like to hear a comment on that.
Sure, I can chime in on that one. So, yeah, you are correct. It is a fairly steep slope down to there in that sort of 8% range. Which would give you those parking stalls at that same slope. Yeah, we haven't gone into a ton of detail as far as the grading in that area. If they were to creep up above that sort of 8.3%, then we would, like I said, to look at potentially relocating those. So, yeah, good comment.
Yeah, so that it's just, I'm just pointing that out. Obviously, like what Pat said, it's something you're going to have to address, and I'm not sure if it needs to be a recommendation, but it could affect the project. Hopefully, not in a way that you have to really look at the siting of these buildings and come up with a solution to it, because if that happens, you might have to come back to us. So, so hopefully you get that addressed fairly soon. But other than that, I like the project. Well done. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Tyler.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks for the presentation. Not much to add. I think Kevin sort of covered it. It is what it is. It's an in-demand use that does hurt my heart because it's such an inefficient use of land, but it is obviously in demand. And so yeah, not much to add other than the staff comments as well.
Okay, thank you. Tony?
Yeah, I guess for variations on it is what it is, and the fact is it's a very utilitarian complex of buildings for obvious reasons. And the one that's going to have the most impact, we're dealing with form and character here primarily, and the one that's going to have the most impact is, I think it's called the warehouse building, the one, the short one. Yeah, okay. So that's obviously going to be the most visible to off-site, the public and so forth. And it looks like you've recognized that by giving it a different kind of appearance to the other buildings, which are basically, you know, pre-engineered steel or whatever they are. And to me, the effort that you've made, I think, is quite nominal. And frankly, from my personal point of view, I wonder whether it wouldn't actually look better and maybe even cost less if you did that warehouse building in exactly the same motif, finish, etc., as the rest of the building on the site, so that there was an overall harmony and cohesiveness. Maybe you change some colors or put a little more glass in it or something like that. But you don't need, I don't think, to pretend that it's a different building just because it's a little more visible. I think a good, honest industrial look is what it is from my point of view. And I don't see anything wrong with a slightly enhanced pre-engineered steel building that kind of fits in with the rest of what you're doing on the site. So I don't know how I deal with that, or that's my only personal opinion here, and nobody else shares that, but that's fine. But I just wanted to kind of get that off my chest, and that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. I got lost. I think Kate?
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I'm having a hard time actually with landscape for this one because it is zoned light industrial, but it is so close to a commercial area, and it is becoming a more important corridor for Nanaimo, I think, as we develop south. And so I would kind of like to see 10th Street treated more like a road with street trees and a larger kind of planting buffer, and or I feel like these sites really should be restoration sites. The landscape should really take that approach. I don't know about, so either if they're going to have more refined ornamental, then have the street trees and really reinforce that street edge because it's become a more important corridor in the city, and or treat it as a restoration project and pull in your like I believe in the south area neighborhood, the recommendation is to include at least 50% trees and or use primarily native planting schemes. So I would urge the landscape architect to move in that direction so that we can just increase the biodiversity on the site, and that would be great. I don't know if I'm allowed to say you.
I can respond to that, Kate. You'll notice where the property line is on 10th. It's very, very close to that. Actually, the fence is right on the property line, so there's very little boulevard there. Hence, I've indicated columnar oaks along that area, which will fit. Quite literally will fit. I can't speak for the site layout, but I know it's very tight right all the way across in order to get the turning movements and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not involved in that, but there's a very narrow strip along that part. It's interrupted by that big hydro crossing that comes across on the curve there. And then on the other side, we endeavor to retain some of those overgrown Japanese maples that are there. They're actually pretty nice trees. They're set back from the edge of the road and so forth. So the idea is to sort of clear the area around there and enhance the use of those trees. But underneath the power line, there's really very little we can do other than enhance planting. So to your biodiversity question, the planting area is completely native vegetation. It's all species that grow specifically in that biogeographical zone and are appropriate to the edge of a water course. So there's a native planting with all of the right characters in it. The frontage landscape is unabashedly just ornamental. We're not endeavoring to make it all native. I don't think that's quite honestly appropriate. It would be counterindicated to the kind of approach we're talking about, which is to start creating a more landscaped corridor with some of the other improved buildings that are along there. For instance, the Courier Company, and there's another couple of companies where they put in new buildings, new gate details, and so forth. So it is coming along, but there's a limited amount of space actually on that straight part of the fence that we can do anything because there's the property line is very close to the Edmund Road.
Is that the line you're asking for variance for? The project asking for variance?
I have no idea.
I wasn't aware of any variances, but it sounded like it was on the railroad property line.
I thought there was one.
There is a variance on, it's on the railway corridor, which is the west side, so away from the street.
Yeah, so when the road is being built, the street edge is pretty much right there.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out I'm just trying to figure out where you have plants and or grass, I guess.
Well, if you look at the detailed L2, it shows the detailed areas for the frontage, which is mainly grass.
Yeah.
I have rock grass at the back, which is essentially a utility corridor of various stripes and fashions. There's the power line, there's the railway track, and there's also, as I pointed out, a copse of trees that goes along on the railway side of the right-of-way, which extends for about half of the site. There's a big mound here behind there, and behind there there's a bunch of trees and rock site.
Okay. I don't know. I think I just want to see more plants. If I can make that last one. I'm not sure if I don't have a recommendation. I think there should be more plant material on this site than there is.
Yeah, and so Kate, you referenced the South Area guidelines. What did you say? They recommend 50% of something?
50% evergreen trees in the planting scheme. And,
okay.
And maintain a stand of native, maintain any stands of native evergreen. But this site was already cleared, yeah. I suppose my comment is maybe it's not one that we can make it something. I hope that with this kind of development, I think the city needs to be looking at having more plants beyond lawn and trees.
Yeah, so I think what I heard you say is that, yes, additional planting, less lawn, but also enhancing the streetscape, the streetscape.
Yeah, and I was kind of going two ways. I either wanted the streetscape to be enhanced or I kind of wanted the back end on the stream just to take the same approach across the whole landscape. So I don't have one. Okay, I'm a Gemini. I've got 2 ideas here. I don't have anything to say. I just think this kind of building is disappointing and we need to put forward as much plant material as we can on these kind of sites and try to rejuvenate that landscape a little bit more, given it was a cleared site. So if there's any opportunity for the landscape to be even more robust than it is, then I would love the West Architect to consider that. So to push the budget of the client.
Okay. Anything else? Kate? No? Okay. And I think, I'm just checking, Kate, Steve, Kevin, Tyler, Tony. Okay, I will do my same thing. Again, most everything's been covered. I will echo Kevin's comments. the things I had written down were generally in alignment with the staff comments about the any opportunity to provide articulation, wayfinding to the buildings, and I don't think it kind of aligns with Tony's comment about perhaps looking at making these buildings more unified in their overall presentation, and then picking a scheme for how you create wayfinding and variation within that. Parking has been covered. The garbage enclosure, it was one of the staff comments, and it's a very minor point, but the presentation, it's interesting in the 3D model views that we were given. There's one really big blank block wall structure, and it took me like 5 minutes to figure out what that was, and then I realized it's the garbage enclosure. So I think the garbage enclosure definitely needs to be unified with the design of the rest of the buildings, like the office or the warehouses, because it just stands out like a sore thumb as a blank block structure. Yeah, and it goes back to the earlier point, but just as a suggestion, not a recommendation, but in terms of how do you change the buildings to make them, it can be very subtle things like the small mini storage buildings. They all present the same way with hip roofs towards the street, and it might be interesting if one of them maybe had a gable end and it had a building number on the end of it or something. Like you can do a very simple roof variation in that way to provide some variety to the building. So I think there's some simple moves that can be done to provide a little more variation and interest and help with the wayfinding. So with that, I think I have, again, a consideration from Kevin to consider the staff comments, in particular those related to the wayfinding, the articulation, and amenity space for staff.
And reduce.
And reduce paving.
And reduce.
Correct, yeah. Reduce paving. I'll say reduce paving area. Tony, I kind of echoed your comment about considering the warehouse building design, and so I think if you're okay, or if everybody's okay, well, I'll put that in as a recommendation. So I wrote to consider unifying the design of the warehouse building with the other pre-engineered buildings. And then, Kate, I've got consideration for reducing the lawn areas and adding additional planting material. Okay, any other comments or, sorry, recommendations that I might have missed?
I have no other recommendations, but with respect to the cladding and material in the warehouse, I think what sets it apart, and with its different materials and the quality of it, it makes it look like it's a different project. It makes it stand out differently. And I think if they put a similar cladding, that looks part of, like it could be mini stores, right? And so I think the effort they put into that with the materials, I would prefer to remain the same, but that's just me.
Can I just mention something? Norman here, Mount Benson Enterprises. Although it is all on one site and it is one project, there are two separate businesses essentially. The self-storage business is its own business that has its own access, and then the mini warehouses are a separate business. And I think that within that mini warehouse situation, each front door essentially also represents a different business of whomever the leaseholder is at the time. So that's where the difference between self-storage and the mini warehouse look comes in, I guess.
Okay. Thank you, Norman. That's a good distinction. And so I'm going to, before we make any motion or whatever, I'm going to suggest, I think, and Tony, you can tell me if I'm stepping on your toes, but that I think some of the comments in the staff report, they apply to both buildings essentially, so there could be some variation in color, material, on the warehouse building to differentiate the different bays or whatever. So there's still some consideration for making that building a little bit different, but it's not unifying it with the other designs. Does that make sense to you?
Well, I don't know to clear my point, but it seems to me that regardless of the owners of the buildings and the units within the buildings, it's being presented and will be built and perceived as basically one large, industrial storage type complex. And just on principle, I think it would be appropriate that it has some harmony from building to building, some unity, and I quite like the simplicity and the color scheme of the mini storage, buildings, sort of at the back, as I call it, to me, to put something that's nominally different just for the sake of being different on the third main building, if it were, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, and it creates a bit of a disharmony. And as far as signage, I think that if the color scheme of the rear buildings were, were applied throughout the site, then it would be actually easier for the wayfinding system to apply to everything. So that, you had a similar color scheme, or you had a similar graphic symbol, whatever you're going to use. If everything were a lot more unified, then the signage could be a lot simpler and cleaner. So I'm not trying to be fanatical about this or anything, but maybe I'm getting a little too abstract in my old age. But as I said, I see it as one complex that personally I would much rather see unified than not. So that's it. Perhaps it could be done, commented on just as a for consideration or something.
Right. Well, that was going to be my next comment, was that we can leave the recommendation in if everybody agrees, because all our recommendations begin with consideration for such and such. So we're not mandating that it be done. It's just it's our opinion, or general opinion, that it's something to be considered. So does anybody else have a comment? Like Kevin, you've already commented on the individuality of that building and its appeal for you, and I guess my question is, do we leave this recommendation in, or do we or not put it in? Does anybody else have a strong opinion?
Well, I'll put my vote in that I would prefer that recommendation is not in, and I think if you go around the panel, see how everyone feels about it.
Yeah. Sorry, can I chime in here?
Yep.
I don't have an issue with that, and I agree with you, Kevin. If you look along Boxwood and some of the dynamic changes, and I understand with Mount Benson Enterprises where they want to keep that separation between the two projects, especially when there's going to be potentially 8 lessors there. With that separation between the two, I think makes sense in my humble opinion.
Okay. Kate or Tyler, did you have any comments? Tyler?
Yeah, we're all going around. When Tony said his comments, I thought, oh yeah, that really makes sense, and I don't know. So I always like it when just anything just truly embraces what it actually is, and I just think to myself, I think probably Kate's comments there around the attractiveness of the site is the most important. It's going to be the landscaping and how it feels. And so I just think if Tony's comments is maybe a little more utilitarian in terms of the building. It might free up money for that landscape budget that would probably go a longer way, longer term in terms of the attractiveness of the sites and just the general market.
Norm?
Yeah, I just got one more. We'd love to enhance the landscaping. We actually really like better quality landscaping than not. With the hydro easement there, it might cause some issues to, you know, create more different landscaping, but we will take your comments under advisement with regards to more plants or maybe a little bit different type of situation there on the frontage. But just to go back, like, I mean, I would love to save money and do steel buildings in the front there, and we can make them look different, but I think, like, from a public perspective, not as nice, but yeah.
Okay, Kate?
We could even make them look like, make them look a lot like the storage buildings if you prefer that, and then, you know, just like maybe do through some color variances or what have you, make them differentiate, but they will, it won't, I mean, I'd be happy to do it that way.
Okay, Kate, did you have a comment?
No, I don't have any further comments.
Okay, and I think I'm gonna side on the no recommendation for unifying buildings. I think leaving the variation, leaving the building sort of different, but including it in the comment about looking at ways to increase the articulation and the, I forget all the words, the, you know, variation, articulation and wayfinding scheme. I think that will enhance that building, and you know, if you do have different tenants, you're gonna have different signage. It's, you know, it has the potential to look. It looks all unified right now because it's generic. So I think I'll side on the no recommendation for unifying side of things, which leaves us, I believe, with basically two recommendations. The one which is consideration for the staff comments, in particular the amenity wayfinding, articulation, and reduced paving area, and Kate's consideration for reducing the lawn area and adding additional planting materials. And there is the variance along the right-of-way for the landscape buffer of 1.8 meters that's not being provided. So I think we should include whether or not we have any issues or, you know, support for that variance. So could I ask somebody to put a motion down with those two recommendations? Yep, Kevin?
I'll make a motion to accept the application as presented with support for the variance and those two recommendations.
Okay, seconder? Steve? And any further comments on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Tyler, that was in favor, yes?
That was opposed. You got to stand by your thoughts. So,
okay, you're opposed.
I even, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. And
thank you. Hey, bye, Norm.
I'm going to zoom back to the beginning.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so we don't have anything else to consider, so I'm going to recommend adjournment, motion for adjournment. Tyler?
I have one question actually to staff. It's come up a few times. You know, Kate recently tonight around within the development permit guidelines. I know, Kevin, you've commented on the past, and I'm just curious through to staff if, as we do, you know, we're doing the OCP review, a big component of OCP is development permits, and I'm just wondering any touch points with this council, or sorry, with this panel on input onto potential changes that we Kevin, I think you've probably got the most experience with things that work or, might need some changing over the years of just incorporating that feedback into the OCP and the development permit guidelines.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something we maybe should give some thought to and get back to you. Maybe that should be some homework for our next meeting. I know nothing's perfect amongst any of the panels. And I think over the years, I think the panel has made very good strides. I've been on it now for 18 years, I think. And it's something that we have voiced our opinion before, and more often than not, city staff concurs, and it does go to council. And one that we pushed for many years was to have council representation on the panel, which I'm glad you're taking it very seriously, because it helps a lot. It's nice to have that voice, so that when these go to council, that we have a voice there that will remember the project and be able to speak openly about it. I'm not sure if there's anything else that we're really lacking, but I think if we all spend a little bit of time thinking about it before next meeting and come up with some topics to discuss, I think that might be something that we can have for other business for next meeting.
Sure, yeah, just see it with you, and then, I'll touch base with obviously Dale Lindsay and how any feedback, it can be super small things about just frustrations in a DP or whatever, and then we can find a way to maybe get that feedback as part of the engagement process for the OCP and the development permits.
Mm-hmm. I would just add that one of the things that I have sort of pushed before is adding one or two more members to the panel. There's always trouble sometimes with quorums, whether it's because people are away, especially in the summertime, or sometimes there's a conflict of interest. So that's one that I pushed before, to get maybe even another architect on the panel, or possibly a landscape architect. Obviously, it's great to always have someone who's experienced with building construction, and to have Steve here for that's really important too. But maybe it is something for you to consider, is that maybe add one or more members to the panel.
Could I chime in on?
Yeah, good.
That's a great point, Kevin. I think there's, having a more diverse look, I think from my perspective as a developer, having a builder would be an actual builder on the panel would be lovely, because they look at things completely different, and I think everybody can attest to that. And of course, with Kate on there, with landscape architect, gives us a more balanced feel. And my personal experiences of going through the DAP on previous projects, it seems like there's more calm now than there ever was. I could be wrong. Kevin, you could probably attest to this more so than anybody, right?
Yeah, this panel and the way it's working, and the people that are on it, and their personalities and their demeanors, it would be probably the best one that I've been a part of.
That's all you, Tyler.
For a builder on the DAP panel that has a lot of experience with bigger projects. I remember when Doug Bromwich was on, and he would point out things regarding construction and ventilation and things like that none of us else really knew about. And so having somebody like yourself, Steve, who's very familiar with those types of projects, is very, very helpful. Almost, I think it should be, instead of a member at large, it should be a required position on the panel.
It would be.
Okay.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Yeah, you know what, I think, I know that there would be, with a little bit of nudging, there's some quality builders that, you know, they just don't know, you know, why I even came on board with the advisory panel was, I think it was through staff, if I'm not mistaken. And, but it's not publicized all that much out there, right? So, but if you went to a few builders and the bigger projects, like you said, because the smaller projects, you know, it really isn't relevant, but the bigger projects, most definitely it is. And the biggest step, especially with costs right now, is the buildability, you know, of a project. You know, with the prices going through the roof, you know, it gives us that added step. That's knowing if it's ever going to get built or not, or, you know, those types of things. Anyway, I'll shut my mouth after that.
Well, Steve, I would just add that I've asked Chris Lundy and Greg Constable numerous times, almost after our terms are up, I've asked them numerous times to be on the panel, and they say, oh, I'll think about it. I never hear from them.
You know what, the issue that you have with these groups, and sorry to say, but I've got some issues that will be conflicts that are coming up here in the next year. So, you know, for Chris Lundy or Greg Constable, where they have probably, what, 5 or 6 projects running through, you know, and as well, you know, if they go against their competition, you know, then it looks bad. And I'm very wary of that and try to stay open-minded and be pretty supportive of projects. But you know what, maybe it's a step of, you know, somebody that's a builder that's moving into bigger development. I don't know what that is, but you know, it would definitely help all of us, you know, from a different perspective. Man, I'm a blowhard.
I was just going to add we should focus on diversity on our panel as well.
Yes, that too, of course.
Yeah.
Well,
having
Bree on the panel is great. You know, she provides a totally different insight to it, our panel. So, yeah, that's a good point, Kate.
Okay, well, I'll leave it with you guys, you know, and I'll touch base with city staff too. I just think, you know, there's an opportunity here where we are doing engagement and we are talking about the OCP, and obviously development permits are so crucial to that. So, just think about it, and I'll get back to you guys on some, you know, possible routes of funneling this information out.
I know, oh, sorry, Kevin.
Go ahead,
I was going to say, I know we're going to be working here, myself and my partner, to put together a lot of good comments for the OCP review. So, you know, we certainly I can collect comments and add.
Yeah, well, it's funny, years ago when I was first on the panel, we did not review light industrial or industrial projects. So if it had stayed that way, if we didn't ask the city to go through with it, and the reason why was there was a project built ongoing behind the Mopac building there. I think it was a concrete block building that was a photocopier place. And it was zoned light industrial, so they didn't have to come to us. And a lot of people in the neighborhood were upset because of that building. And because of that, we recommended to staff and then to council that light industrial and industrial buildings be done through DAP. And it was one that ended up coming through. And it was good because the whole Green Rock subdivision area could have looked totally different if we didn't have that.
Right.
Yeah, like today I was commenting because I have quite a few colleagues who work in Vancouver, Richmond, and they've had to do a lot of, as landscape architects, work on big warehouse buildings. And these are huge warehouse buildings, but they've been able to put in these really massive, extensive landscapes that are just about, they're huge perennial wild grass it just really concentrated on the biodiversity of the site, and they said it's been amazing what birds and bugs have been attracted, and because the sites are so big, they can create these really nice corridors. So I think our industrial lands could be, that we could almost have a more stronger environmental layer because of their use, and there is more space to create better corridors of landscape connecting different areas.
Kate, do you think treatment levels need to be increased?
Pardon me?
Do you think the landscape treatment levels need to be increased?
I think we need to look at the different, like I think there's an opportunity on these industrial sites to...
Projects, do you have any problems with some of the projects, depending on the zoning and stuff? Do you think that the treatment levels are good enough, the amount of landscape that's going into it?
Well, I know I was going back and forth on this one because I thought, oh, you could have a more intense landscape on the edge or more refined, but then in the end I think I would conclude with, I would rather see them remove all those ornamentals and just focus on having more robust, fixed plantings, and it doesn't have to, it can be like hedgerows almost. Hedgerows offer so much more.
Like California lilac.
Oh, no, more diverse than that, like looking at some of our native plants. Like even if you look under the hydro lines now, you have a lot of our native shrubs growing, and they offer a lot of habitat for the birds in this area. And so I think we could look at that, like look at the landscape maybe less ornamental, more about its functionality and providing shelter, food for other species than us.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is there's probably a conversation here that was more depth than my intention, maybe just feeding the idea. So I'll loop back with some staff and then maybe see where we can go from there and come back to the panel. And just now that you guys are thinking about it, that's great, and we can find a way to incorporate that. Thanks, Charles.
Yep, that all sounds good. So I am now going to call for adjournment, because all that has already been live streamed and recorded, and so our whole conversation is out there in the world, so there you go. Thank you all for attending tonight, and I think are we scheduled for 2 weeks? I don't know for sure, but...
Yes.
Yeah, so... Yep, all those in, we don't vote on adjournment, I'm saying we're adjourning the meeting. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.